Thank you.
The only battlefield in my world is the dance floor. Prepare for madness.
When I stay here, I risk everything. I leave everything behind.
Или потому что я сильна.
Ja,
Ich bin der neue Lehrer.
ich hab Sie da noch nie gesehen.
Ja, weil ich neu bin. Morgen.
Wer ist das, Frau Lehrer?
Das ist der Herr Fuchs, mein neuer Assistent.
Die sieht jetzt schon aus wie ein Unfall.
Baumgartinger, hast Bluthochdruck?
Fuchs, willkommen im Strafvollzug.
Kitabe, Jugendgerichtshilfe.
Fuchs, ich bin der neue Lehrer. Ich bin da, um die Frau Berger abzulösen.
Da sind Sie nicht der Erste.
Da drinnen ist es eng. Gibt's keinen Platz für Fehler.
Du siehst ungeduldig, aggressiv, hat sich die Haare geschnitten.
Man darf nicht vergessen, mit wem man es da zu tun hat.
Wollen Sie gar nicht wissen, warum die da sind?
Raufhandel, Körperverletzung, Vergewaltigung, Mord, wer weiß. Horcht's mal wirklich nur auf euren Herzschlag. Wer will einen Apfelstrudel?
Ihre Kollegin bringt viel zu viel Unruhe in den Betrieb.
Du musst es visualisieren. Gut, werft's mir raus, ist mir wurscht. Aber lasst den Kindern das malen.
Noch eine das Leben der erinnert so zur Hölle.
Hilfe!
Wieso sind Sie hier? Uns nimmt sowieso keiner mehr.
Was soll ich jetzt machen?
Das Richtige, Fuchs.
Sperr die Tür auf! Hier tut sich was an! Ich bin trotzdem Missgeburten!
Lehrer, Picasso kann mir den Schwanz lutschen.
Keiner will dir deinen Schwanz lutschen.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another session of Film Talk with me, Novel Yazid. I'm the festival co-director of Europe on Screen. And this afternoon, we will have a chat with Arman Riahi. He is the director of our film Fuchs in a Whole. Before I begin, let me tell you a few rules about this webinar. Currently, this session is being recorded, and you can also join this webinar in the YouTube Live. And you will see the Q&A box on the bottom of your screen. So feel free to ask questions by typing in your questions in the Q&A box, and we will conduct the entire session in English. Welcome, Arman. You can unmute your microphone. Right.
Hi, thank you for the invitation.
Hi, good morning there.
Good morning. With you, it's afternoon, right?
It is 3 o'clock here in Jakarta. So how are you?
I'm fine. I'm good. I have a lot of work right now, but I'm okay.
Okay, great. I just want to start with you that we have sold out the tickets for Fuchs in a Whole in our festival. So it is one of the fastest book tickets in our festival. And we started the screening yesterday, and we've already gotten some reviews coming in from our audience, mostly telling how intense the film is. And I would like to begin by asking, as I watched the film, that we root for each and every character, not just the teacher, but also the students. In a way, we can tell that you actually know these characters very well. So do you happen to know these characters in real life? I mean, despite this being a work of fiction, but are there any real life inspirations that you take in creating these characters?
Yes, actually, sorry, I'm happy that you asked, because the film is actually based on the experiences of a real Austrian prison teacher. Actually, one of the first prison teachers of Austria. He was working for 30 years in the biggest prison of Austria with juvenile delinquents. And I met him during my the research of my first cinema documentary. It was about 12 years ago, and I was doing a documentary on young adults and teenagers in Austria who have immigration, like have immigrated with their parents or are born here from parents from a different culture, but they can't really, they couldn't really identify with European culture or Austrian culture. I wanted to find out why. So, and many of them had problems with the police and with the law. So I wanted to meet some of them and I thought a good place, to meet these bad guys, the bad boys, is to go directly to prison and talk to them about why they're there and how they feel and what happened to them. And so I called the prison, the biggest prison of Austria, which is located in Vienna. It's Justizanstalt Wien-Josefstadt, and the leader, the prison, the head of the prison, he told me that I should come and visit the prison school. And I was very surprised that something like a prison school even exists. I didn't know, but it's in Austria, from the age of 14, you can be imprisoned, and there is a law that the minimum age of going to school has to be, the 4th grade, I think. It means around the age of 14 or 15 actually. So there's 2 overlapping years, when you have to go to school, in prison or anywhere, when you're in the hands of the state or the government, you have to be in school as well. So there I met this original teacher. His name is Wolfgang Riebniger, and from the very first day I was in this classroom, I had the idea to make a movie about this place. And he wasn't the only inspiration. More or less everything you see in the movie, every character is based on a real person that I met during my research. I just took the cases. For example, the case of Samira, the girl or boy, the intersexual girl. I took her case and changed the gender and changed some detail because I didn't want the real person to be identified more or less. But the film is really based on years of research in a real prison.
Did you eventually make that documentary that you initially was supposed to make?
Yes, the documentary was finished in 2011. It was my first feature-length movie, and it was released in Austrian cinemas that year. Yeah.
I see. And that led you to make this film.
Yes.
In a way.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
I see. And this is also interesting because when we watch a foreign film, we hardly think of a film set in prison as a representation of that country, because it's hardly that way. But then we get to see, like I said earlier, different characters of Austrian people that we hardly see in any other films coming from the country. Would you say that these characters that you create are really represent the demographic of the current Austrian demographic?
Well, not really of the general population. Sorry, but but this is what you see in the prison class, and the prison school is definitely a representation of the prison demographic. So it's not a representation of Austrian society, but it could be seen as a representation of different also class of society, or the prison demographics in Austria just looks like this, like I didn't exaggerate with how is the proportion or the balance between Austrians or immigrants in the prison. It's just more or less the way you see it in the movie. And of course, this is not a representation of the general population of Austria, but I think it's a representation of a very important aspect of society that we never see, and also of Austrians, because for example, with Austria or Vienna, you're connecting this beautiful city and cultural heritage and arts and music, and these things, but maybe not a prison and not a prison school. And I think that's what also was very interesting to me is I probably wouldn't have made a movie only about a prison. So what for me was very interesting about this, about what I saw there, was art. That art was so important in the curriculum of this teacher. And this film is also, of course, about what art can help you achieve, and what more or less is what makes life livable. And that's, of course, art is a big part of this.
That's true, and that is actually one of the biggest surprises in the film, as you lead the new teacher in bringing art to dig something deeper within the students. Do you happen to share the same belief that art eventually, makes us, or makes teenagers or youngsters understand life better, understand other lessons better?
Yes, definitely. I mean, the older I grow, the more I think that it's a very amazing cosmic accident that this planet exists and we exist, and it's very difficult to make a lot of sense out of it, because there's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of imbalance in wealth, there's a lot of very few people have more or less most of the capital and the money and the wealth in the world, and all the other people have more or less nothing. And so there is many imbalances, let's say, in the world, and it's difficult for me as an adult to make a lot of sense out of it. So for teenagers, it's even more difficult because they're still in the time of, you know, finding their own identities, finding their sexuality, you know, going to school, fighting with their parents, falling in love. So it's so many things happening. I think every anchor, every little thing that helps them make sense of what happens outside, you know, happens in the world, helps. Because I mean, for me as an adult, a grown-up man, I think it's art. Without art, there is nothing, you know. So it's like it's very important for me to understand, to use art as a carrier of how I see the world, or how I interpret the things that are happening around me. And yeah, and a big part of all of this is, of course, death, you know, and without death, I think there is no art, and I think that's why there is also Fuchs's case, you know, the teacher, and what happened to him. And yeah, it's of course, art is a very important part of all of our lives, even if we don't admit it.
And speaking of art, I would like to know about the art of the filmmaking of this film, because I'm always curious with a film of this great intensity. How was the making of the film, and how were the actors involved in their characters? Were there any workshops or rigorous rehearsals, and whether they are professional actors or new actors, especially the teenagers?
The actors, so all of the more or less 90% of the teenagers were amateurs. They were never in front of the camera before this film. So we did over 1 year. We had a casting. We cast over 400 young teenagers and young adults for these roles.
Oh, that's quite a long time. 1 year.
That's quite a long time. Yeah, because I was really afraid that if this classroom is not authentic, and you know, if these young actors aren't good, my film will not work, you know. So we took a lot of care, you know, with of these characters. I also, when I found the first actors, and I was sure, okay, they will be in the film, I started reassessing the roles that I was writing for them. So that means I developed for each boy or girl you see sitting in this classroom, we developed a background story. We developed something that happened to them. They have a name, they have family, they have somebody waiting for them outside or not. They have a talisman, they have a lot of details that we developed, because as you've seen, many of these roles don't have even a word to say, or maybe a few sentences. And I still wanted them to, you know, convey that they're in what shape they are, and in what psychological situation they are, and I wanted them to have a face, even though you can only, you know, they don't have a lot of dialogue, or yeah. So this was that, and the film itself, because it's in a very tight room and situation, and it's very closed and small and claustrophobic. I wanted the camera to be free. I wanted the camera like an observer who's in the prison for the first time and can walk around. You know, of course, not through the doors that are closed but are locked. But I wanted a free camera. Also, because my previous movie was a comedy and a very more or less straight a classical mainstream comedy, and the camera was very, you know, it was very set. And now in this movie, for me, there was only one way to shoot it, and it was by handheld camera, and to be very close to the characters, also to be very free flowing, and that's also how we decided to light the movie. So we chose to set up remote controlled lights in all of the rooms.
Okay.
So there weren't any long breaks. For people who are not professional actors or actresses, it could be a problem that between two shots you have to change the light, or you have to put something, and that this could take a lot of time. So before we even started, we said, no, this is not going to happen. We will put some remote control lights into the rooms, and we can control them with an iPad and say we need this to be a little bit lighter there, and this to be a little bit darker, so we can the children and the amateur actors are not disrupted in their flow once they're inside. So there were no breaks in that sense. We just kept repeating stuff, and we had shots, that in the end when they drum together in the class, this was like a 10-minute shot without any break. So then we edited it, of course, because it took a little bit too long. It was very interesting. I love this kind of filmmaking, this kind of style, because it's I have the feeling that I can react quickly, and I'm very I wanted it to be as intense as you said. I wanted to be this film to be an intense movie and very very gripping.
Yeah, and you mentioned about the scene where they play drums, and that was a powerful scene, and it's quite uplifting as well. And it ends the film in a higher note than I would say from the beginning or the rest of the film. It gives a sense of uplifting. But I want to know how important it is to have a rhythm in your films.
Mm-hmm. Well, rhythm is the most important thing somehow, because it's so how do you say it? It's so essential. So I think that everything somehow began with rhythm. Like before there was language, before there was any kind of communication. I think the first communication was rhythm, like rhythm of the nature, that we understood as humans, really back in time. It's now super, for me, rhythm is like super essential in filmmaking, because if the rhythm is not right, especially the tool we use for it to have it is of course editing, but it's also the rhythm of the scenes, the rhythm of the story. And in my film, it's getting more and more intense and quicker and quicker the longer the film develops. And it was like I could have done it differently, but for me it was a very interesting experiment also to see how intense can it get by the end of the movie, and then still be, still give the film a little bit of an aftermath, when Fuchs comes back and everything's a little bit slower, and I even did something like it was interesting. If you make a movie, if you prepare a movie, you pre-time, like you see, you want to know how long the scenes are, So you have a calculation of the movie, like if it's like 3 hours, then already, in the script phase, then okay, probably it's going to be too long if you don't want a long movie like this. So I tested the length of the scenes, and then I made a chart to see how what is the rhythm of the scenes, are there too many long scenes, are there not enough long scenes, etc. So I don't know what my conclusion in the end was, but I had the feeling that it helped me also visualizing the the rhythm, and not only keep it in the dark, but to see, okay, just ask yourself this question: how can the rhythm what can the rhythm do with the audience?
And also the reason why I asked about the rhythm, because and you also mentioned about your previous film, the comedy, I believe it's called the Migrumpis.
Yes.
I mean, I hope I pronounce it correctly.
Yeah.
We actually screened the film 2 years ago in the festival.
Yeah.
So actually some of our audience are really familiar with your filmography, but we didn't expect that a filmmaker who made such a lighthearted comedy in Migrumpis can make this a very intense drama. Was it difficult when you leave a certain film with a specific genre and you're about to board on to the next project that is completely different genre, in this case like the Migrumpis and Fuchs in a whole? How difficult is it?
You mean to change between the
Yes.
genres?
Yes.
Well, yeah, it wasn't easy, of course, because I wasn't sure if I can, I knew that I had a good story at hand, that this was a interesting setting, and it was I had good characters, inspired by real characters, but of course, I'm not used to something else, it's the thing that interests me the most about film, about my own filmmaking or career as a filmmaker, is actually to do different things. I don't want to do always the same. It's like my first film, as I said, was a comedy. I never did a comedy before. Before that, I actually come from documentary movies. So I tried it, and many people were warning us to do a comedy. They said, "Oh, comedy is the most difficult thing," and it's like the most masterful discipline, because nobody knows how you can make people laugh, etc., etc. We tried it. We were, of course, a little bit naive, but it worked. The film was very successful in Austria, and then I thought, because actually I had the idea to make Fuchs in a Hole before I had my comedy, I did my comedy.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, the idea was older than the other one, and at some point I thought, okay, now is the time for a drama, and I just sat down and tried to do the best I can to make a good movie and write a good script.
Yeah.
And the next thing is probably going to be a political thriller, or maybe there is a horror psycho horror thriller even in develop. I don't know. I don't want to do, I don't want to do the same things, because this is all, time. This is all life's time. It's like it's I'm not in this business, or in this area to I didn't do any plans. I'm doing what I'm interested in. I think I have to. For me, it's not very good to make plans for the next 10 years. I want to be here and there with my movies. Of course, I want people to see my movies, as many as possible. But I think I need to react to what happens around me in the world. And now I think it's very important to change, and to try out new things. For me as an artist, if I can even say that I'm an artist, but for me as a filmmaker, I think this is the most interesting way of keeping my excitement, about the job. It's just I don't want to repeat myself too much, and I think I need the challenge of new genres to try them out. And I mean,
let's not repeat what we've made before. So
Exactly.
anyway, Arman, we already have a few questions we
Yes.
will answer from those joining us. The first one is from Pogi Kurniawan. He asked about the title Fox in the Hole. Does it actually mean someone who is about to break out of the hole? But in this movie, I felt that there is not just one fox, but many foxes like Han, Samira, even the prison director. And when those students go through the door, it felt like everyone was getting out of the hole, even the hole was different for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, the title Fox in the Hole is actually, it actually comes from the First World War, and it means that the soldiers who are on your team, they are safe, you know.
Okay.
And Fox, like Hannes, the teacher, he is in the beginning of the movie, he's more or less, you know, he's hiding himself, you know. He's hiding behind his trauma and his emotions, and he at the end of the movie he's freed, you know. And in Austria, in German language, there is a double meaning for this, because hole is prison, of course, you know, and Fox is his name, more or less. Fuchs is the German word for fox. So, but I mean, the title has a lot of interpretations, and that's why I decided to take it, because it's also, of course, about the prison as some kind of hole, some kind of hiding place, and then for everybody in the movie to be released, so, and to be you know, to break out of this place. And you're right, it's even if they're still in there, you know, by the class and by the art class and these opportunities they get, they somehow are freed.
And another question, I want to jump to Alif Imam Zaki. Good morning, Mr. Arman. As you have said before, that this film intends to portray something previously underexplored about Austria, that is the life and education in prison. I want to know, how are the responses of viewers within Austria and in the Europe towards your movie?
Actually, pretty good, really good, actually. So we had a lot of good reviews of the movie. It was opened. It opened the National Austrian Film Festival in June. It was the opening movie, and the film already received several awards, 3 script writing awards. Now Maria Hofstetter, who's Berger, the teacher, she won in Germany the Deutsche Schauspielpreis, the German acting award, which is it's a huge award for her leading role in Fox in a Hole. And also in the cinemas, even though right now the numbers are not very good because it's still COVID, the film is doing pretty well. It's actually the most successful Austrian film at the cinemas, but it's still a prison movie. You know, it's not a comedy that everybody is going to watch. But I think it was really well received, also with viewers, because it's not classical Austrian. It's not a classical Austrian movie. You know, it's not doing the same thing that most of the Austrian films do. So it's a little bit surprising for the people, and everybody really loved the authenticity of the film, and you know, the realistic depiction of the prison situation. And I mean, of course, the film is also criticizing the prison situation itself in Austria, that children as young as 14 even are in prison. You know, I think that's, you need to rethink this.
Obviously, you made the film before the pandemic, and then you had to release it during the pandemic. So what was the experience like for you releasing this film during the pandemic?
It was actually quite frustrating. Last year, I was really like, by the end of the year, I was I was not really happy, and because the film, many festivals we wanted to apply to were cancelled, or were super reduced to very few films. It was very difficult to get in, and we missed a few chances, even though we had very good feedback. And then we just had to make compromises. We had to postpone the start of the movie in the cinemas 2-3 times. It was just a very difficult time. I was, as a filmmaker last year, was really frustrating because I had a finished movie. I was really doubting my movie somehow a little bit, because I was feeling like, okay, nobody is interested in it, and there is no cinema showing open. It was, of course, because of the pandemic, because the cinemas were closed, but somehow it was a difficult time. I was really wondering, okay, if it continues to be like this, then I have to rethink making movies for the cinema. But I mean, I'm a filmmaker who works for cinema, so actually I don't want to give up, and I won't, of course. But last year was really a test.
Yeah, it was tough for everybody, like especially in our industry. And another question is from Fanny. Hi, Mr. Arman. What scene you like the best from this film, and what is the most difficult scene to take that needs retake a few times?
My favorite scene from this movie is actually difficult to say. I like the most sequence I like is the sequence I like the most is the door sequence, to be honest.
Yes.
Especially beginning with Fuchs losing his key, or Berger stealing his key. Yes. and then this scene at Berger's home, because the original teacher really took the door of his apartment and brought it into the prison. This is also based, this also happened more or less, but what I changed is that they hammered the door out of the wall, and this is like something I really liked, because I think it's very surreal, and I think it's very strange. The audience doesn't realize in the beginning what's happening, and I like that. I like the confusion, and I think I want to write more into this direction also, to leave a little bit these classical ways of narration and storytelling, and try out to be more experimental, and to be more surreal in because this situation in the beginning nobody understands it, but when they bring it to the class, and the children walk through it, and somebody else had a question. Pogi Kurniavan had the question, Hannes Fuchs first seemed to be against Mrs. Berger's ways of thinking, but when did he change his mind? After his visit to Berger's house, or after Berger suddenly passed out? What made him change? In the end, he used another art. The moment for me that made him change was this moment with Berger at her home, with the door. This is a moment where they didn't try to fight each other. He saw that she wanted to do something, and he wanted to help her. And out of this, let's do something together, he finally understood what she wants to do. And I mean, it's not like a very clear moment of realization. Berger is testing him from the beginning. That's why she's such an interesting character, and she's very clever. Berger actually is, for me at least, she's 2-3 steps ahead most of the time.
Yes.
And not only ahead of Fuchs, but also ahead of Weber, the prison guard, who thinks he can take Fuchs, to be on his side. But Berger is actually 1 or 2 steps in front of him, because she's teaching, she's testing Fuchs and seeing how will he react if something like this happens. because at some point she's not going to be there anymore, and he has to do it on himself by himself.
Yes,
So,
and in a way, she mentors him in a very uncommon way, I would say. And
yes.
And also we have a question from the YouTube viewers. Love your film. Have you also included your own experiences in building either Mr. Fuchs or Beata's character?
Yes, actually Fuchs is me in the beginning.
Okay.
When he walks into the prison for the first time and he sits there and you just see his face and you just hear the children, you know, in the very beginning, in the second scene, this is me. I mean, I wanted to, that's why I wrote Fuchs not as like an experienced prison teacher. I wanted to show him on his first day at prison school, because that was for me such an impressive and lasting moment. You know, I still very vividly remember the first day I was in this prison school, because it was just a very strange atmosphere. It was I thought that I was in a kind of a time loop. I was kind of out of the, you know, out of time. It seems like that this room was not in the year, not in the rest of, not a part of the rest of the world. You know, I thought that, okay, where I did landed, where I've landed here. You know, I wondered, and this awkward feeling, but still a little bit, but still beautiful feeling, and of course a very contradictional feeling. You know, because there were children. I purposely say children because, in my opinion, when you're 14 or 15, you're very much also still a child.
Yeah.
They're sitting there and they have also, you know, there were also, you can't, I don't want to reduce what they did. You know, they were, of course, delinquents, and they had, most of them made big mistakes. Yeah, there were even murderers among them, you know. But still, I was very it was very contradictory for me, and it was a strange feeling to sit in this classroom, but I really liked it a lot. So I wanted Fuchs. I gave Fuchs this feeling that I had, you know, when I was there for the first time, or the first weeks I went to prison. I didn't understand the dynamics, and it's a very hierarchical place. It's a very absolute place. It's full of contradictions. It's either black or white, yes or no. You're inside or outside. You know, you're either a girl or a boy. There's nothing in between. You know, so you're either either a prisoner or you're a guard. And then step by step, I started to see how I can combine these differences and contrasts to make you know, to find interesting characters that are not too cliche for a prison movie, because the prison movie is also a subgenre that we all know. Everybody has seen a prison movie and has some kind of expectations.
And speaking of the intensity, there is a question from Abdul Aziz Muhammad. How could this film preserve constant emotional charge, which at times feels forced, almost as if mechanically induced?
This question I recognize. It's from an interview I did, which you can read online, but it's okay. Yeah, I mean, it's of course the culmination of three characters that all have you know, a backstory of trauma. It's Samira, who's not accepted by her parents, Fuchs, who lost his child, and Berger, who doesn't have a different, you know, another life except the prison and the school. So she also lost somebody, you know. So it's like these three somehow find a way, and of course it it was gonna be very intense, and it definitely also happened on purpose. So it's yeah, I mean, it could seem to be mechanically induced, but yeah, it's a film, you know, it's still a script, and it's of course it's somehow you can say it's forced. I mean, with most of the audience, I think it worked pretty well, and it was it's supposed to also not be, of course, mechanical, but to be touching, and also telling something about people and about teachers, and the difference between teachers and pupils is not so big, you know. It's not only the students that have problems. I wanted to clear up this image of this, you know, of this godlike teacher who has no problems and is you know, perfect, and like from very good films, of course, we know, like Dead Poet Society and these movies, you know, where you have the feeling that the teacher is flawless. And I wanted to show that even the teachers have their own issues, you know.
Of course, because they are human beings, and in a way that you infuse the teacher characters with their flaws and their problems, they appear to be very human, and then we can relate to them.
Yes.
All right. Do you want to take another question, because we seem to have a few? So let's see.
Yeah, if you want, maybe one or two more, no problem.
Okay, great. Let's see. Okay. I take it from the bottom part. Okay, from SLB Gallup, you mentioned the close attention you pay to the rhythm of your film. Would you mind going over your process of finding the right rhythm for the film, and what you think are the most important considerations a storyteller have to make during such process?
Mm-hmm. Okay, great question. Well, I think that really the most important thing, and this is unfortunately nothing that can be taught or explained very much. It's of course your intuition as a filmmaker, that has to be, you know, you have to trust your guts, you know, you have to trust your guts that something feels right. I mean, this is of course a constant, filmmaking is a constant questioning of your work, and there is also self-doubt to if the things you're doing are right. And what concerns the rhythm, I think, because I started filmmaking through editing also. I think I developed a feeling of, you know, at least when I shoot a movie, that I need to, that I know what I need for the editing, you know. So I think I'm becoming a better filmmaker because I'm really there from the beginning until the end in the process, you know. And I think as a filmmaker, you need to really know a lot about like all of the different departments and parts of that make up a movie. That's also what helps you in understanding what your movie needs, what your story needs. And I mean, of course, everything begins with the script, and it's a good sign, for example, that everybody who reads your script don't stops reading it and reads it until the end. I had this feedback when I gave the script of Fuchs in the Hole, away for people to read it and give me feedback. Many of them said, "Wow, I read it like in one, how to say, like I never stopped. You know, I read it from the first page until the last." And then what also helps me is music. So sometimes I shoot scenes, I edit scenes. I mean, I write a lot with music. Sometimes I even, when I have the feeling that there is a song that I think of during the scene, I turn the scene on, I turn the music on, and I put the song on repeat, you know, and then I write the scene or maybe even a sequence where when I think, okay, when this film is shot, I will use this music for this sequence because it fits great. And I'm a big music fan. I try to listen to music I don't know every day. This is like the only thing that I am very strict about. I try to listen to new music, new songs, new works of music every day because it opens my it helps me really to open my mind. So yes, music is very important in editing. Music is very important in writing to me, and yeah, and then I don't know. It's of course what when it comes to rhythm, very good. It's a good like I mean it's nothing new, but it helps to read also classical works of literature. It helps to read Greek tragedies, you know, and epics to understand.
Did it also influence the decision to make Fuchs a drummer?
Oh yes,
how
yes.
you like music? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, of course, and that's why I like these questions about rhythm, because I think that rhythm is really something that everything has, you know. And I'm not like I'm not very, you know, I'm not religious or something, but I think that there is a rhythm to everything that exists, and this rhythm is essential. We have it anyway. I don't think that it's something that we need to learn, but it's very difficult for many people it's difficult to connect to this rhythm that they have inside of them. And I think it's for me it's a question that I'm really concerned with, and there's several interesting works of art that try to understand where this comes from, and I think that, you know, in the beginning of mankind, where there was no language, rhythm and dancing was probably the language, you know. So this is something very quintessential, and I'm still trying to find, you know, my own ways to understand how it works. But I think, unfortunately, it's a lot of it. It's also just feeling, you know, intuition, and also, you know, trying it for many thousands of hours to edit and to see how things work. And maybe you edit with music, maybe you turn off the dialogue of your scene and then try to edit it with just with music, etc., etc. And yeah, I think the quintessential art, just final statement to this question, the quintessential art of film is really editing, you know. That's the new thing about the art of movies, is the editing. So it's also, for me, it's like actually my favorite part of filmmaking is to edit, because I can because it's so interesting to use this tool and to change a story, you know, and to create a universe. And I think all of this is part of it, but editing for me has the most magic.
Okay, and I couldn't agree more, because yeah, just like what you said, magic can happen in the post-production, especially in the editing, and then you can recreate and shape the film the way you want it. Arman, I would love to talk with you more, but unfortunately we only have like maximum 1 hour limit to this film talk session. I think before we end the session, we need to have a photo op. So can the technical host remind us on how to do it?
Yes. Okay, everyone, I am the host. So please look at the camera and we will do the photo session soon. Show us your best pose and smile, and I will count to 3.
Okay, maybe
One.
I should.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Great. Once again. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Vina, and thank you, Arman, for your time. Looking forward to your next projects, whether it's horror or thriller or anything you've never made before.
Thank you so much for the time and the very good questions. Thanks a lot.
Yes. Thank you. Have a good day and have a good weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Demikian tadi sesi ngobrol kita. So that was Arman Riahi with his film Fuchs in a Hole. Tiket Fuchs in a Hole sudah sold out. Jadi buat teman-teman yang sudah punya tiket Fuchs in a Hole tapi belum sempat untuk menonton filmnya, silakan menonton filmnya karena filmnya tersedia sampai 5 hari ke depan. Jadi kalau filmnya dimulai kemarin, berarti filmnya akan tersedia sampai hari Selasa. Kemudian di setiap sesi Q&A kita akan memilih 1 orang penanya terpilih ya, yang akan mendapatkan hadiah dari Europe on Screen, nanti akan dihubungi oleh panitia Europe on Screen. Jadi selamat untuk Pogi Kurniawan. Nanti tim Europe on Screen akan menghubungi untuk proses pengiriman hadiah. So that's our film talk for today. Besok akan ada film talk bersama rekan saya Putri untuk film Dear Future Children. Jangan lupa untuk bergabung di Zoom dan di YouTube. So that was it. Have fun watching films in Europe on Screen. I'm Noval, signing off. Goodbye.